Welcome to this Epic Life podcast, where we explore the connection between building a conscious life and building a conscious team or a conscious business. We also break down 3 powerful permissions with our guests. These would be the permission to chill, to pause and reflect and be with what is. Next, we have permission to feel all the feels, which is to embrace our full, sometimes messy, but always beautiful humanity. And finally, 3, permission to glow in the dark. I will be your host. My name is Christopher Carter. You may call me KC. I'm a coach for founders and executives and meditation teacher for organizations. And now let's meet this week's guest. As we prepare to enter a new decade, so many of us are grappling with how to create more fulfilling work. That theme is the focus of our upcoming retreat in Costa Rica, where we'll design the 2020s on our terms. But why Costa Rica? Well, I can't think of a better spokesman for this sanctuary of renewal and sustainability than Edward Zaydelman. Today, Ed shares his transformative journey from a New York City club promoter to launching a gorgeous retreat center called Vida in Costa Rica. Ed was recently hired by the resort hotel group Selina to create more properties like Vida across the globe. Forbes calls Selina the digital nomad hotel of the future. Could your career be evolving toward more meaning, less complexity, and more authentic connection? Please enjoy this funny, heartfelt conversation with somebody who's done exactly that and been on that journey himself, the always entertaining Edward Zaydelman. How are you doing today?
Hey, Casey, doing awesome.
Welcome to this Epic Life podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's an honor to be here, Casey. Thanks, man.
Remind me how we know each other.
We know each other because I met you in the jungles of Costa Rica at a retreat that you did with our buddy Phil. I think you were wearing some form of clothing with a unicorn on it, if I'm not mistaken.
It's possible.
Could that be?
It's possible.
Is that possible?
Remind me your current role these days. You're in the States at the moment, correct?
Yeah, I'm in the States. I've lived in Costa Rica for about 10 years, working on Vida, our retreat center there, which is where we met. And now I'm currently expanding that concept with an awesome company called Selina. And so we're building a portfolio of retreat centers all over the world. And we're at about 10 right now that we'll be developing that are magical and to host events like this and really special gatherings and places that are not just your average hotel, let's put it that way.
And what's that branch of Selina called that you lead?
So we're just about to launch it. So I guess these are kind of the first people who are going to hear about it, but it's called Lighthouse Collective. And the website is about to go up soon. I think that word is always really funny when they tell you it's almost ready. But it's called Lighthouse Collective, and it's essentially going to be a network that stands for being a credible and safe and trustworthy source for retreat leaders and mastermind leaders to find homes for these events.
Oh, that's so cool. So you're actually a CEO of a larger resort organization.
I am a CEO of a large organization, but my role is mostly in growth and also in kind of making sure that everything stays on brand and stays sacred, stays beautiful.
See, this is why I love working with you, Ed, is that you kind of straddle these 2 worlds. You have to be buttoned up and put together to stand in boardrooms and talk business. And you also get to go back to a sacred, magical retreat center that you call home.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? The other thing just gets it all working. But yeah, it's about being there and connecting. And the more time I'm away from there, the more I miss it. Such a dichotomy.
So you got to take me back and help our listeners understand how you discovered Vida and how your family ended up in Costa Rica.
Yeah, I'm from New York. I had a very different background. I used to do large scale events, like 5,000 to 7,000 people in a nightclub when I was just getting out of high school. The event world to me turned into a place where I just saw people connecting. Then went to Burning Man and learned some crazy things about how experiences can be created with art and magic, and later started finding more masterminds and more of these trips, retreats, and that was all very new to me. My family at the time was kind of undergoing like our own little wellness revolution because my grandfather had passed away from cancer. We had seen better ways to eat, better ways to feed our body, all the nutrients, all the love, all the physical activity it needed. And when we looked at places around the world where we could do this as a family, I was also getting into the health stuff. Even though I was younger, I was like, wow, my body is pretty burnt out from all of the work. And my friends who are entrepreneurs were the same. And so when we looked at places first around the world where we could do something health and wellness related with a spiritual component and a food component and ecology and all the things, we found Costa Rica, which is this like jewel in Central America, close to the US, no army, all their money went to education. It was like one big green country, the most biodiverse country in the world by square foot. Everything kind of hit the check mark, stable, safe. And so, this was the place where, for this kind of vision. And so I had left college, and instead of going on a traditional job path, combined with my dad to go down to Costa Rica and essentially create a wellness center of the future, a retreat center of the future, but with all these other things that we wanted. Fun, like we don't want to, I saw so many places that were really boring, and I was like, wow, this is not what I imagined. Why can't we, do yoga and meditation, look at beautiful art, go on a zip lining trip, whatever it is, whatever kind of wellness or spiritual protocol, we could combine it with fun and ecology. And when we started adding social impact into the mix, it became kind of an all-encompassing vision. And that's where Vida was born about 12 years ago. Initially, we went down to Costa, and we found the property in Miramar, Punta Arenas, in this small, quiet seaside town overlooking the Gulf of Nicoya. We found a 65-acre property there, which is now called Vida, about 5-6 years ago. And I'll tell you more, but ever since then, we've been planting food and cultivating that place and growing it.
So how did you convince your dad? Is your dad Russian?
My dad is Russian. He was, first of all, he thought I was losing it going to Burning Man. He's like, boy, what is going on? What is happening in Birmingham? What are you doing? And I'm like, first of all, this is not Birmingham. This is Burning Man. Second of all, this is like a really important social gathering, Dad. And then finally I was like, like the founder of Facebook and stuff is there, like real people, Google founders and things. And he was like, okay, it's more networking bullshit. And I was like, no, Dad, it's not networking BS. This is my community, my tribe. But basically, he saw things were going kind of in an interesting direction in my life. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do this, not exactly Burning Man, but I want to do the wellness vision, but I want to do it with fun and et cetera. And I said, what do you want to do? And he left a successful business. I think as many people know, sometimes financially successful could mean not successful in other areas. His health was, depleted. So he said, look, let's do something together. Let's build a wellness center, a community. I won't, be able to do all of it. I can get us the land, but you're going to have to, build a project, build a team, really build a business and et cetera. So I was kind of young and I was after college and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like we'll make it work. I didn't realize how much work it took. Like we went down, we found land. It took us 2 years. We bought land. We met with engineers, architects, marketing, branding companies. I mean, you name it, basically taking something that's in your heart and it's a vision and putting it on paper with numbers and words and websites, became really a different thing. And so that was an exciting process to undertake. So I don't know who got who down there. We both kind of egged each other on. He had a friend down there in Costa Rica, by the way, and I had met a young lady who had told me to go on a vacation there. So like when I arrived there, I got there, it was me, my best friend Jeff, a surfboard, and this old Suzuki, which we almost like rolled off a cliff once. Essentially that was it. And it was 2 years of hunting for land and figuring it all out.
What were the qualities of the property when you kind of searched all over Costa Rica for this special place? What were you looking for, and how did you know that you found it at Vida?
I don't think we knew what we were looking for. We had criteria. Like we had criteria that we wanted it to be incredible, natural, abundant property, but within 2 hours from a major airport, at least around the hospital or some safety features. We wanted it to be remote enough, but still, on-grid enough where you could have your creature comforts. And so, as we started looking through and Quiet Town and all of this, some of the bigger, more popular beach towns and tourist destinations faded because, one, we were a group destination, so we didn't really rely on foot traffic. But two, we didn't want to be all around that because we wanted to create a sacred space and a place where you could meditate quietly and do whatever you have to do. It wasn't easy. And so we went by horseback, we went by airplane, boat, and we found... one of the realtors said, look, let me show you one more property in this area that you guys probably wouldn't typically go to. And it was on our way home, and it was this quiet town of Miramar. And to this day, somehow someone always has like an uncle or relative from Costa Rica that lives there. So it's this really quiet town, but it's not. And when we got there, the people were so kind. We saw like little stuff that we needed, supermarkets, restaurant, little, creature comforts. But when we got to the site, we're driving down this epically long driveway lined with mango trees. And I'm like, wow, we are somewhere else. And we get to the property and we get to the top, and the tree line opens up and you see this rancho. It's basically this old Central American pavilion with beautiful wood and metal roof, and has a restaurant in there. And that was it, on a big platform overlooking the ocean. And everyone's jaw drops immediately because they see the ocean. And then I look a few steps further and I see this incredible tree, like some kind of, you imagine it was probably the tree that Buddha sat under if he was in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Like it looked like that.
It's an incredible tree. It's like one of a kind for sure.
Yeah. And I walked under that tree and I stood under there, and, I think I mentioned this to you once. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're spiritual, whether you're just coming from the streets of New York and never, felt into any nature before, but you feel something there. Woo or not, like you feel something under there. And that tree was the anchor. At least it was the anchor to get me there. And the rest was looking at, stuff on paper. But from that moment on, I kind of knew that I was home. And it felt like home too, which was weird.
What was the property before you turned it into a retreat center? What was it used for?
So it was always used for kind of the same thing. Groups would gather there. It was a restaurant in Rancho Mirador, which in Central America is a place where you have gatherings, parties, weddings, birthdays. Also on the weekends, it was open just as a restaurant with a view over the ocean. So it was always a place where people came and it catered to people. What
year was this that you started the process of converting it into a retreat center?
When I first went down to Costa Rica, it was about 2007. So yeah, it's about 11 years ago, and about 11, 12 years, and about 6 years ago was when Vida started.
I've been there twice, stayed on site in the glamping tents, the yurts, and it's totally different than what I pictured the Costa Rica retreat experience. I guess I don't know what I pictured it to be. Our buddy Phil Powis invited me down to help lead a couple of his groups, and that place feels family oriented. And I don't know if it's because of your family being involved or the staff. Could you tell me a little bit about the types of people that you attract to work there?
It does kind of feel like one big family. So the place, first of all, treated it like home from day one. Anyone who's lived there, whether as a staffer or as a semi-permanent resident, someone who's been on our team as a host, yeah, you definitely feel a sense of family. All of the staffs, the people who work there every day, Donaldo, our caretaker, lives on site, amazing local guy. And we also have all the local housekeepers and kitchen staff, which it's literally our entire local community of Miramar in a nutshell. You have cousins and brothers and sisters, and our chef Vanessa, unbelievable angel of a lady who's from Miramar and also sources all local food. Even if it's not grown, we grow a lot of our food on site, but the food that's not grown on site comes from farmers that she knows face to face that don't use pesticides, that she trusts and they trust her. And so, yeah, it definitely creates a very familial environment there. I lived on site for 3 years. And so, yeah, it's definitely a place where you wake up and you make your morning coffee and breakfast and you forget that you're at a retreat center sometimes. Well, except for the 15 other friends that normally aren't at your house. I don't know about your house, but.
So it feels like home for me. The food, there's something special in the food there. I don't know if it's just at Vida or just Vanessa's hands are responsible for that. What do you think about the connection between that green friendly, no army, kind of innocent culture that's there and how that impacts what we eat when we're there?
Well, a few things. One is the country, because of the dedication of its resources to other places like education and ecology, it's also one of the biggest land preservation countries, and 98% of our energy is renewable. So when your money goes into that and you have a healthy ecosystem, let's put it in many ways, not just ecologically, then you can actually have the rest. And the food is a product of that, because basically our local farmers make food that the people around them eat. This isn't huge export food in many cases. In each country you have your examples of things that, would be frowned upon. But in this case, it's a country where the majority of it is clean, fresh, abundant local food. And our a lot of times you go on vacation. I don't know if you know this, Kate, if you've experienced this, but you'll go to like this gorgeous beach place, just like Costa Rica in terms of beautiful beaches and ocean. And then they serve you some food that's like, cheeseburger. And nothing against the cheeseburger, but I want to eat local food. And so Vanessa's cooking incorporates the stuff we're used to at home, but she also puts in a healthy flavor. She puts in a local flavor. So Costa Ricans will eat a lot of rices and salads and beans, and whether it's chicken, fish, or vegetarian and vegan is off the charts too. But one way or another, it's just clean, simple food, less processed food, less glutens and dairies and all these things that are making us a little bit funny sometimes. But so that's one of the things. It's as much as we can organic, local, fair trade, I would say unprocessed, things like that.
And what about the coffee? Because I feel like the coffee in Costa Rica is completely insane. And we got to tour that incredible family-owned plantation that grows some of the coffee that's served there. Or how did you get connected to that family? And did you have any part in organizing that tour?
I kind of was observing the tours that we do that are really fun and epic, and usually are these like larger companies who own catamarans and boats. And I had gone on a trip up to the mountains above our property, the Montes de Oro, because we were looking for farms that we could support. One, not only that we could buy from, but if it was a really pretty farm that we can bring guests to and show them how people live, how people farm. And I didn't know, but at the time, like there was this whole like agro and ecotourism thing happening where the country was promoting that kind of tourism more. So as a foreigner, when you fly into another country, your dollars on that retreat or trip can go to, a multinational tour park that's doing, ATVs and all these things, can also go to a local farmer directly. And that kind of impact tourism blew my mind. So I said, look, in all of these retreats and groups, if we could do one trip or one thing where we can show them that and then leave those dollars that cup of coffee bought in the farmer's hands, not awesome. Elsewhere, it's really impactful. And then the people who come, like you're doing that just by attending the retreat, just by attending that tour, of the coffee farm, you're helping support that. So it's kind of a cool thing. And some people even, I don't know how many get their hands very dirty, but those are the times when you can touch the soil if you want. And
when I think about the excursions we've taken from Vida, the excursions themselves are amazing, like the cloud forest and zip lining, like all that stuff was super exhilarating, except that time that the guests, they tricked me into jumping into like 50-degree water. And I was like, my body still seizes up anytime I think about it.
I don't live with many regrets, Casey, but the fact that I didn't see that and see your face at that moment, because I know how cold that water is. And
they were in the water acting like it wasn't freezing. They're like, come on in, man, take off your gear, jump in. So I cannonballed off this cliff into the water and regretted it the second that my body plunged in. The eco tour of the coffee plantation, what sticks out to me about that tour and the cloud forest, the events themselves were incredible, but those drives in were so breathtaking. I mean, you feel like you're in a painting and it just keeps getting more and more ridiculous. The rocky terrain, the very modest buildings that grow all this magical stuff. I mean, I loved meeting the family that tends the earth that produces the coffee and then sampling the coffee with them afterwards. It was it was crazy.
You ever see a lot of books and there's various like interviews when they talk to people who are in the latter part of their life and they ask like, what do you really remember from life? What were the most memorable moments, or what do you look back on and smile? And the most common answer was travel and meeting people, like really meeting real people, not the people you see down the block in New York and California and Ohio and wherever we live, which are also cool people, but meeting people around the world, you realize you're part of something bigger, that you and that farmer are part of one big human thing, and that's really cool.
And just how much they appreciated how curious all of our guests were about their process and their way of life and everything. It was just like a really beautiful sharing of cultures, and the incredible coffee just made it all that much more euphoric.
You can't buy that coffee at Whole Foods. It's close, but it's not that farm to table.
So if you were talking to somebody who was hesitant or fearful of traveling that far into Costa Rica, lands in San Jose Airport and travels, what is it, about an hour and a half into the jungle?
So anyone who's hesitant, first talk to my mom, because I got her to do it, and that's that's huge. No, we really did want to make sure it's as accessible as possible. So the flight from both coasts of the U.S. is about 4.5 to 5 hours. A lot of other airports just connect through Houston if there isn't direct. So it's usually pretty easy flights, and we're like a coast-to-coast flight. So that part was easy. And then when we get to San Jose, we take a bus, we get picked up in a little shuttle, and it's about an hour and a half drive on a beautiful highway that takes us to the coast, and then smaller roads that get us up to the property, like you said, that begin getting really scenic.
Yeah, and the final gauntlet is the driveway. Those machines work hard on that driveway. It's pretty incredible to get up there into the grove of trees and everything. The piece of land that it sits on, how many acres is that property, the larger piece?
So zooming into Costa Rica, we're on the Central Pacific coast, and then we're on the 65-acre property, which sits surrounded by 800 acres of protected forest lands. And so our property, basically, I would say we only occupy about a couple acres of it at the top. So the property itself, Vida, is mostly preserved. So in that sense, we have about, I would say, 2-3 acres on top where we have a ranch there, and the swimming pool and the whole area that you see that we do all the retreats on. So yeah, so that's kind of the property, and it's mostly permaculture farm. So we have 600 fruit trees, mango trees, superfood trees like jackfruit, acerola cherries, cacaos, you name it, nonis, and also gardens and things like that for the things that we eat day to day. There's a little place for us humans to sleep and eat.
Right underneath the howler monkeys. Do you actually speak their language at this point? Can you communicate with a howler monkey?
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I don't want to freak people out who are listening, but I do. I'm one with the howler monkey.
If you had to imitate the sound that you wake up to when you're in the yurt beneath the trees, what does a howler monkey sound like?
It's kind of like a and then they start laughing at you. I can't really do the laugh so well, but it's a monkey laugh.
See, that confirms it for me. I had a hunch that you were actually a howler monkey, and I feel like we just confirmed it.
I'm part howler, but no joke, Casey, tell me if you experience this, but after like day 1 and 2, like all of nature is curious about you. Yeah. Day 2, you kind of get in the groove of nature, and all of a sudden the monkeys come up, the animals are like, everything kind of chills out.
Right. You just become part of the scene. Definitely more than any place I've visited on retreat. I feel like Costa Rica has this magical quality of letting the American way of life and the stress and the travel just kind of melt off of you. It starts as soon as you get on site, but by day 2, especially day 3, it's hard to remember the difference. It's profound.
That's one of the things that I think is awesome is just like, and I remember, and now I notice it from coming from New York, just going to land in nature like that for a couple of days resets you. So like, I feel like just that base alone is just an amazing place to start and just chill out and, have time to just do you also.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your time and helping us paint the picture for people that are going to join us. And thanks, as always, from a place of acknowledgement. Thanks for being a host with the most. Thanks for attracting such an incredible group of people. The group of teachers and facilitators that you attract to that place are also just really incredible. So shout out to Rodolfo Carrillo and Julie Pham and Shanti, who we will be welcoming back. I feel like we're selfishly going for a big family reunion, Ed.
Those people who you just mentioned are some of the biggest catalysts and reasons that the transformation happens at these experiences. So Just really grateful for them and really grateful for you, Casey, and all these people who keep coming and just bringing that energy to the land, because it's a two-way road, and it's just really awesome. It's not, we're really blessed to have a certain kind of people show up. I can't describe them. They're just magnetized. And I'm really grateful for that as well, because it makes the place more special than you can imagine.
Well, so grateful to be part of it. Well, thanks again for your time, Ed, and I will see you soon in the jungle.
Awesome, Casey. Looking forward.
And thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in learning more and possibly joining us for this Epic Life retreat in Costa Rica, spots are limited and it is filling up. Check out www.thisepiclife.com/retreat. Book a call and find a package that works for you. And until next time, glow in the dark.